You took 6,000. Where's the money? The elder brother's shouts split the silence of the workshop like a hammer strike. He slammed a stack of bank statements onto the table, and the papers scattered across the floor, screaming with cold numbers. Each line told the same story. Money had left the family business account. No invoice, no signature, no explanation. The younger brother stood opposite, his face pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. To answer meant to admit at least part of the blame. To stay silent meant to condemn himself even more. Their mother sat to the side, hunched, her hands pressed tightly to her knees. Her eyes darted from one son to the other, but she couldn't find the strength to stop this storm. She knew any word now would only pour fuel on the fire. The elder slammed his palm on the table, pulled out his phone, and shoved the screen forward. On the photo, the younger brother, standing by a parking lot, holding an envelope. He was handing it to a woman whose face was barely visible, just a shadow of features and a strand of dark hair. But that was enough to make his brother's rage boil over. Who is she? His voice cracked. And why did the money end up with her? The younger turned away. Shame and despair pounded in his chest, but no words came out. His silence became an admission. This isn't just a transfer. The elder continued, his voice low, each word lashing like a whip. This is a lie. This is about old debts you don't even know the whole truth about. This is someone else's game, and you've been made a pawn. Their mother let out a quiet sigh and covered her face with her hands. A suffocating silence filled the room. Only that photograph on the table remained, a frozen image of betrayal, while $6,000 vanished into the void, marking the beginning of the family's end. The older brother was always the numbers man, precise, methodical, forever armed with a pen and ledger. In the family workshop, he stood like a wall of rules, the one who made sure invoices matched receipts, the one who counted every nail, every cent. He lived by the book, because for him, life without structure was chaos. Since boyhood, he carried the weight of proving himself to his father. Every neat column of figures, every balance sheet was his declaration, I am dependable. I will never fail you. Yet beneath this rigid discipline lurked a fragile pride. His strength was control, but that strength was also his flaw. For when control slipped, so did his entire sense of worth. The younger brother was the opposite, the voice, the smile, the handshake at the door. Charismatic, quick on his feet, the one clients remembered. If the older one was steel, the younger was fire. He dreamed of expansion, of bigger deals, of moving the workshop from a dusty corner of town to the city's main street. He believed in people, sometimes too much. A supplier with a convincing story, a client with a sparkle in their eye, even a stranger promising connections. The younger brother was ready to trust, to leap. His strength was vision, but his flaw was impulse. The business itself was their father's creation, a patchwork of honest craftsmanship and shadowy accounting. In the town, everyone respected him, but behind the neat storefront there had always been whispers. Odd books, gray money trails, favors traded in back rooms. The older son knew some of it. The younger was kept in the dark. Their father's rule had always been clear. Every withdrawal required 2 signatures. It was supposed to protect the family from greed, mistakes, betrayal. But as years went on, the younger found ways to bend that rule. Small emergency purchases, minor temporary transfers. It started with convenience. It grew into habit. Their differences ran deeper than business. As boys, they had competed for their father's approval, one with perfect grades, the other with effortless charm. The father, stern but shrewd, had sometimes set them against each other, praising one for diligence, the other for ambition. Old scars from those childhood rivalries still burned quietly, hidden under polite smiles in front of clients, but flaring in private arguments. And then there was the woman, not yet fully revealed, but always on the edges of memory. The older brother had seen her once, years ago, at the father's workshop, a fleeting visitor with sharp eyes and a quiet voice. The younger brother now met her again, though he had not spoken her name aloud. On the phone photo, her face was half hidden, but it was enough. Her presence tied past to present, father's secrets to their fight today. The stage was set. 2 brothers, bound by blood and inheritance, torn apart by $6,000. But even they sensed that the missing money was only the spark. The real fire was buried in their history, in their flaws, and in the strangers who knew too much about both. She appeared almost like a ghost from the past. Natalie M., once the family's trusted bookkeeper, a woman who had shared late-night coffee with their mother during tax season, the kind of person everyone thought had disappeared when their father died. And yet, here she was, smiling as if nothing had changed. Her offer seemed too perfect, a rare batch of materials, impossible to get through official distributors, at a discount, $6,000 cash, no delays, no paperwork. She leaned closer to the younger brother, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. Your father trusted me. I saved this business from the IRS more than once. I won't let you down now. Those words hit exactly where his doubts lived. The younger brother, who had grown up in his father's shadow, desperately wanted to prove that he could make decisions boldly, without asking for permission. And here was Natalie, the living link to his father's old ways. She didn't just hand over an invoice. Instead, she slid across a neatly folded piece of paper, a promissory note, with the name of an obscure company written at the top. Her company, a shell, but polished enough to look legitimate. She tapped the paper lightly with a manicured nail and smiled. All I need is your signature. Don't drag your brother into this. He'll only slow you down with his rules and paranoia. Do this, and the materials will be on site in 3 days. You'll look like the visionary, not the cautious accountant. The younger brother hesitated, the weight of years of rivalry pressing on his chest. He could almost hear his father's voice, not the warm voice of family dinners, but the sharp tone from the workshop. Take risks, son. Fortune favors the bold. He signed. The pen scraped the paper, leaving behind ink that felt heavier than it should have. Natalie's eyes flickered, almost with triumph, though she quickly covered it with a mask of reassurance. Smart move, she said, slipping the note into her leather folder. You'll thank me for this. Your father would have. But as she walked away, heels clicking like a metronome of impending doom, something about her calmness unsettled him. She didn't look like someone making a desperate deal. She looked like someone who had already won. The younger brother carried the secret for days, convinced he had made a bold decision that would silence his older brother's endless lectures about rules, signatures, and double checks. But the materials never arrived. Instead, rumors began to trickle in. A supplier who had never heard of Natalie's company, whispers that she had used the same trick years ago with another family, and most chillingly, a warning from an old neighbor. That woman, she always knew more about your father's money than he ever admitted. It was no longer about missing drywall or unpaid workers. This was a thread pulling loose decades of buried lies, debts, and a betrayal that might not have started with $6,000, but with the father himself. The elder brother always began his mornings the same way, checking numbers, cross-referencing receipts, updating the thick binders that had become his obsession. He trusted columns, not promises. That morning, something immediately felt wrong. In the March ledger, the figures didn't match. He opened the folder labeled Materials, March. It was empty. No invoices. No delivery notes. No scanned receipts. Just a bank line staring at him in cold typeface. $6,000. Cash withdrawal. His pulse spiked. The workshop around him felt suddenly suffocating, the smell of sawdust and half-painted walls pressing in. He slapped the empty folder on the desk as if it were evidence in a trial. Explain this. Where are the materials? Where are the papers? The younger brother hesitated. His usual easy charm drained away, replaced by a nervous shuffle. It was an opportunity. A super discount. Through someone I trust. Everything's under control. The elder jabbed his finger at the blank folder. Under control? You don't have a single receipt, not a contract, not even a delivery slip. The air between them tightened, brittle with anger. The younger tried to recover, but his words sounded weaker with every breath. It was faster this way. She promised it would work out. From the kitchen, their mother appeared, drawn by the rising voices. Her eyes carried the weight of decades of keeping the family from tearing itself apart. My sons, she pleaded softly, don't drag this into the open. Settle it between you. Your father built this place with his hands. Don't destroy it with yours. But the elder was already shaking with fury, the fury of a man who lived by order and felt betrayed by chaos. No cash without proof. No deals in the shadows. This isn't your wallet. It's the family's business. The younger lowered his gaze. In his hand, he crumpled the edge of a paper. Some note, perhaps a promise, but he never showed it. That silence, that refusal to answer, was louder than any scream. In that moment, the elder understood. It wasn't just $6,000 that had disappeared. Trust had vanished too. And without trust, a family business becomes nothing more than a battlefield. The older brother knew how to be angry in silence. He didn't shout, didn't break things. He opened his laptop, logged into the bank, and dug through numbers like a surgeon dissecting a wound. That night, the small workshop was half dark, the lamp casting a sharp glow across the desk. Numbers never lied. There it was, a cash withdrawal, exactly $6,000. The authorization? His younger brother's card. The location? An ATM near a parking lot. The time? Late at night, long after the shop had closed. His pulse quickened. He pulled the security footage. And there it was, no rumor, no suspicion, but an image carved into fact. The younger brother stood by the car. A woman approached, wrapped in a long coat. Her face was only half lit by the flickering streetlight, just enough to reveal a familiar profile. Natalia, the family friend, the savior of the past. He pressed pause, his jaw tightening. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a setup, a trap, laid with precision. He turned to the chat logs. At first glance, nothing unusual, short exchanges, casual promises. But then the rhythm revealed itself. The materials are already on the way, Natalia had written. Always at night. Always hours after a question. Her replies were vague, skeletal, designed not to inform but to pacify. A delay tactic. A stall to keep trust alive until the money vanished completely. He dug deeper. The company's name on the receipt. The supposed supplier. He ran the search. The address? AP. Oh, box. Not an office, not a warehouse, just a mailbox. The website? A shallow shell, stock images, 3 bland photos, a phone number tied to no real name. Even the logo looked like it had been slapped together in 5 minutes. But the most damning detail was in the signature. The receipt bore not only the name of this so-called supplier, but also a surname. A maiden name. Natalia's. It didn't match the name she had given his brother. It didn't match the one their mother used when she spoke of her. Was it a mistake, a slip of arrogance, or a deliberate breadcrumb she wanted someone to find? The older brother leaned back, staring at the evidence, and for the first time felt the ground shift beneath him. Every thread, every record, every blurred photo led back to Natalia. But none of it was straightforward. It was as though the entire trail had been designed not to expose her, but to ensnare his brother, to ensure that when the hammer fell, it would crush him first. Why? That was the word echoing through his mind. Why would she risk it? Why betray a family she had once stood beside? Why weave a scheme that could so easily collapse under scrutiny? And another question lingered, darker, heavier. Did the younger brother truly not see what was happening? Or had he willingly stepped into her orbit, blinded by trust, by desperation, or by something he wasn't ready to admit? The deeper the older brother dug, the less clarity he found. But he could feel the outline of a larger truth, like a figure standing just beyond the light. Natalia wasn't a mistake of the present. She was a shadow from the family's past, carrying secrets no one yet dared to name. The investigation wasn't about money anymore. It was about unmasking the web of lies that had been spun around them, and deciding who, in the end, was pulling the strings. Sometimes the truth doesn't hide in digital logs or bank statements, but in dusty folders that have been waiting under the stairs for decades. The elder brother, sorting through the family workshop archives, stumbled upon a worn folder whose smell was as heavy as its contents. The paper had yellowed, the edges curled, but their father's handwriting was unmistakable. His hands shook when he saw the numbers. A deficit of $12,000. Not 6, not a trivial purchase of materials, but a sum capable of burying the entire business. At the bottom was the signature of the accountant, Natalia, the same name that had begun to surface everywhere, in the brother's receipt, in the fake contracts, in the shadowy messages. But on the back of the folder was something far more damning, a rushed note in their father's hand, almost like a cry for help. "I'll repay her, or everything burns." Those words struck harder than any evidence. The elder brother clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened. He realized this drama hadn't begun with his brother's reckless step. It stretched from the past, roots of a poisonous tree that had been growing for years. That night he forced himself into a conversation he had feared all his life. With their mother. She sat in the kitchen, cradling a cup of cold tea, and for the first time allowed herself to look fragile. "Yes," she whispered. "Natalia saved us back then. The tax office was closing in. Your father had been running gray accounts. He was risking everything. Natalia patched the hole, rewrote the reports, got us through the audit. But it wasn't charity." She paused, then raised her eyes. "She demanded money. A lot. We paid part of it, sold the car, even pawned my jewelry. But 6,000 remained hanging over us. Your father promised he'd return it. He died, but the debt stayed. Natalia never forgot. She never forgets." The elder brother reeled back. In his head, the pieces of the puzzle snapped together. His younger brother, trusting and impulsive, had been nothing more than a pawn. Natalia had dangled the offer of a once-in-a-lifetime deal and seized what she believed was hers by right, a debt left unpaid 10 years ago. The $6,000 weren't materials for the workshop. They were a ghost debt, collected with precision and cruelty. The elder brother understood. This was no longer just about fairness between siblings. This was about a past their mother had hidden and a guilt their father never managed to redeem. Natalia had come back for her due, and she had used the one who always trusted people blindly. In that moment, the story ceased to be a family quarrel. It became the unraveling of an old knot, where every move threatened to tear the family apart for good. When the elder brother finally grasped the scale of the deception, he did what he had always done best. He reached for the paperwork. Cold, meticulous, and precise. Within days, a file appeared in small claims court under his name. Unauthorized withdrawal of $6,000. The wording was dry, stripped of emotion, but every line carried the weight of his fury. For him, it was not just about the money. It was about principle, about rules broken by the very person who should have guarded them. The younger brother did not stay silent. His counterclaim landed swiftly, almost defiantly. He argued, "I acted in the best interest of the workshop. I trusted a supplier who came highly recommended. I was misled." But he went further. He named a third party, Natalia, as directly responsible. In his filings, her name appeared on the receipt, on the supposed contract, on the promise of a special discount. Suddenly, the battle was no longer just brother versus brother. It became a triangle of accusation, each side straining under the weight of betrayal. Inside the home, the fractures deepened. Their mother found herself pulled apart like fabric under too much tension. She would sit at the kitchen table, staring at the stacks of papers, whispering to herself, "If I side with one, I condemn the other." To her, the legal battle wasn't a matter of contracts or signatures. It was the echo of her late husband's hidden debt, a shadow that had never truly lifted. Protecting the younger meant excusing his recklessness. Standing with the elder meant acknowledging that her husband had left a mine buried in their lives. The brothers, once inseparable children, now barely spoke without shouting. The elder's voice, sharp as a blade, accused, "You gambled with everything father built." The younger fired back, raw and desperate, "I trusted her because you never trust me." Each word carved new scars. The workshop itself mirrored the chaos. Tools lay untouched, invoices piled up unpaid. Clients began to whisper, sensing something was breaking. The smell of sawdust and varnish, once the heartbeat of the family business, was drowned out by the sound of slammed doors and late-night arguments. In court, the air was different, quieter, more suffocating. The elder brother's legal claim presented him as the guardian of order. The younger's counterclaim painted him as a victim of manipulation. Natalia's name floated between them like a ghost, the silent third figure who had twisted their history into a present-day war. And in the middle sat their mother, torn by impossible choices. She could see the boy she once cradled now branded as reckless, and the son she relied on for stability turning cold and merciless. Every word she spoke seemed to fracture further, no matter whom she tried to soothe. What began as $6,000 had become a storm that threatened to wash away not only their livelihood, but the very foundation of their family. The small claims courtroom felt heavier than its size suggested. It wasn't just the $6,000. It was the sense that the entire family's history had been dragged into the fluorescent light. The judge glanced up from the case file, his brows knitting as he prepared to hear testimony. Natalia was the first to move. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had once held the family in the palm of her hand. Placing a stack of neatly printed pages on the plaintiff's table, she announced, "Here is the supplier's receipt." Her voice was clipped, almost rehearsed. The PDF showed a company name, a logo, an invoice number, and a date. At first glance, it looked plausible, but the elder brother's attorney immediately requested that the document be analyzed. The court's auditor adjusted his glasses and connected a laptop to the projector. On the screen, the metadata glowed in sharp contrast to Natalia's poise. The PDF had been created the night before the hearing. A ripple of whispers spread through the courtroom. The auditor continued, voice steady but cutting. The invoice numbers are inconsistent. They do not match any established series. The company listed here does not exist in the National Business Registry. Our database of shipments shows no incoming materials, no warehouse scans, no transport records. In plain terms, this document is fabricated. The goods were never delivered. The elder brother stood. His voice was firm, heavy with the discipline he had carried since their father's time. "Even if these papers were genuine," he said, locking eyes with his sibling, "they break the one rule our father built this workshop on. No transaction, no withdrawal, without dual signatures. That safeguard was broken. My brother moved $6,000 without my knowledge. The breach of procedure lies with him." The younger brother shot to his feet, pale but burning with defiance. His fist struck the table. "Don't twist this into my crime. She manipulated me." His finger pointed directly at Natalia. She leaned on father's name. "She told me, your father always trusted me. He signed without hesitation. She wrapped herself in his authority, and I believed her. I didn't steal. I trusted." The mother rose next, her hands trembling as she clutched a faded folder. The silence was so deep the shuffling of her shoes echoed against the wooden benches. Her voice cracked, but she pressed forward. "I must tell the truth. Years ago, your father nearly lost everything when the tax office came for him. Natalia rewrote the books. She saved us, yes, but it was not out of kindness. She demanded payment. We paid part, sold the car, even pawned my jewelry. But $6,000 remained, an unpaid balance your father carried to his grave. Natalia never forgave. She never forgets." The judge leaned forward, elbows on the bench. His tone cut through the air like a blade. "Mrs. Natalia, did you present yourself as a supplier of materials, or as a creditor collecting on an old debt?" For the first time, Natalia faltered. Her composure cracked. She shuffled her papers, her eyes darting between the judge and the brothers. Her lips parted, closed, then parted again. I was compensating for services I provided long ago. Your father, he trusted me. This was my way of recovering what was mine." Gasps erupted. Some spectators leaned forward, others exchanged looks of disbelief. The elder brother let out a long, bitter breath. The younger bowed his head into his hands. Their mother covered her face, shoulders shaking with a grief deeper than anger. The judge's gavel came down hard, restoring silence, but no one could erase what had been said. Natalia had admitted it. The $6,000 had nothing to do with materials, contracts, or promises of expansion. They had been siphoned off as payment for a ghost debt from a decade earlier, a debt no one else had agreed to honor. The courtroom now felt less like a place of law and more like a confessional. Secrets buried by their father had clawed their way back into the present. Natalia's revelation did more than expose her scheme. It revealed just how fragile the family's foundations had always been. In that moment, it was clear this wasn't just a trial over money. It was the unraveling of a legacy, one lie at a time. The silence in the courtroom was so heavy it seemed to press against the walls. When the judge finally raised his eyes, the entire room held its breath. His voice, calm yet unyielding, cut through the air like a hammer before it ever touched the desk. "The court has reviewed the evidence, heard both parties, and considered the testimony of the experts. The decision is as follows." His gaze shifted toward Natalia. She sat frozen, clutching a thin folder against her chest, as if the papers inside could shield her from what was coming. "The primary responsibility rests with you," the judge declared, his tone firm. You misled the younger brother. You acted on behalf of a non-existent supplier. You presented falsified invoices, and you received funds without any lawful basis. This constitutes unjust enrichment and the use of forged documents. Therefore, this court orders you to return $6,000, plus all legal fees, to the family business. Gasps rippled through the audience. Natalia's lips trembled. Her pale face betrayed the collapse of her confident mask. The mother of the brothers covered her mouth with her hand, torn between relief and despair. Then the judge turned to the younger brother. His tone softened only slightly, but the weight of the words was undeniable. You, sir, acted recklessly. You violated the internal regulations set forth by your late father. The system of dual signatures was designed precisely to prevent such losses. By ignoring it, you endangered the business. This court therefore assigns you secondary liability, an official warning, along with responsibility to cover a small portion of the administrative and expert costs. The younger brother lowered his head, shoulders heavy with shame. Relief flickered faintly in his eyes. He had not been branded the main culprit, but the damage to his reputation and to his brother's trust might never heal. The older brother sat rigid, his face a mask of stone. He had technically won, but inside there was no triumph, only a bitter ache. A victory that split the family could hardly feel like justice. But the judge was not finished. His next words carried the weight of finality not just for the case, but for the very fabric of the family's legacy. In light of the evidence and the clear fracture within this household, the court recommends the following. The family business must either be divided or liquidated. All assets are to be split equally between the brothers. If you choose to continue operations, it shall be under strict new rules. No cash transactions. Every payment must be formalized through contracts, and each operation must be confirmed in writing and electronically by both parties. 2 signatures. 2 approvals. No exceptions. The verdict fell like a second hammer strike, heavier than the first. The recommendation was more than procedure. It was an acknowledgement that trust had collapsed beyond repair. The gavel finally descended with a resonant crack. Justice had been spoken. A murmur rose in the gallery. Some spectators shook their heads in disbelief. Others nodded solemnly. Natalia shrank in her seat, the illusion of control stripped away. The younger brother exhaled shakily, realizing that money could be replaced, but his brother's faith in him might never return. The older brother's eyes remained fixed on the bench, unreadable, yet the tension in his clenched jaw betrayed his turmoil. And the mother, she closed her eyes, hands trembling in her lap. The court had delivered fairness, but fairness did not heal fractures. The business, the legacy, the dream her husband had once built, all of it now stood divided, perhaps forever. The verdict was clear. Justice was served. But for this family, the cost of justice was nothing less than the breaking of their bond. In the courthouse hallway, the brothers stand across from each other. No embrace, no tears, but for the first time in a long while, words, spoken not in shouting, but in dialogue. The elder, exhausted, clutching a folder in his hands. I hid father's files. I thought I was protecting his image. I thought it was better for you to believe the legend than to see the truth of what he really did. The younger lowers his gaze. And I trusted Natalia, as if she truly was family. And I failed us all. This moment of admission doesn't erase the cracks, but in the silence of the corridor, something different appears, a space where people finally listen to each other. Natalia walks out alone. Her heels strike the marble floor, echoing louder than any verdict. She carries not only defeat but also the secret tied to their father, a blend of resentment, wounded pride, and greed. That mixture destroyed 2 generations of the same family. The camera seems to freeze on her retreating figure before shifting back to the brothers. Their paths will diverge, but for the first time, they both understand. The real responsibility in this story was not only external, but also within themselves. And now, a question to the audience. Would you risk running a business with family without strict rules? Who is more guilty, the one who stole, or the one who allowed it to happen by blindly trusting in family? And finally, not just a conclusion, but a checklist for anyone watching. White heavy checkmark no cash on trust. White heavy checkmark due diligence even for family friends. White heavy checkmark dual signatures, non-negotiable. White heavy checkmark a decision log where every move is recorded. White heavy checkmark cameras and transparent supply logistics. Because sometimes one missing document doesn't just cost $6,000. It can cost you your family,